The agreement. Elena Vasquez adjusted her vintage camera strap across her shoulder as she hurried through San Francisco's foggy Marina district. Another rejected grant application sat heavy in her inbox, and the rent on her tiny studio apartment was due in 3 days. Her photography talent had earned her critical praise, but little financial stability. When her phone buzzed with a message from her roommate Mira about easy money, Elena almost ignored it. But desperation made her curious. They need someone for a week-long gig. Professional, poised, able to blend with high society. Pays 15 grand, Mira's text read. An hour later, Elena found herself in a sleek downtown office, facing the most intensely serious man she'd ever encountered. "I don't have time for pleasantries," Julian Blackwood said, his voice cool and measured as his dark eyes assessed her. "I need a fiancé for 7 days." The late afternoon light caught the sharp angles of his face, highlighting cheekbones that could cut glass and the subtle tension in his jaw. At 36, Julian had built Blackwood Innovations from nothing into a tech empire, but warmth seemed foreign to him. "I'm sorry, you need a what?" Elena asked, wondering if she'd misheard. Julian sighed, irritation flickering across his features. "I'm finalizing a merger with Nakamura Technologies next week. Their CEO is traditional, values family connections. My board believes my unattached status might hinder negotiations." Elena raised an eyebrow. "So you want to lie?" "I want to remove an unnecessary obstacle," he countered. "Your friend says you studied theater before photography?" "Yes, but..." "Perfect. You'll attend 5 events with me, learn enough about my company to hold basic conversations, and act convincingly affectionate." He slid a contract across the mahogany desk. $15,000, plus expenses for appropriate attire. Elena's fingers brushed the paper, tracing its edge. Her upcoming exhibition needed funding, and her landlord wouldn't accept artistic integrity as payment. Still, something felt off. "Why me?" she asked. "Surely there are professional escorts." "Too transactional," Julian cut in. "I need someone who appears genuine, cultured, someone who could believably capture my interest." His gaze met hers briefly. "Your portfolio shows remarkable emotional intelligence. You see people, not just images." Elena felt a surprising flutter at the unexpected compliment. "You researched me?" "I'm thorough," he replied simply. The contract terms were clear. Maintain the charade for 7 days, sign an NDA, receive payment upon successful completion. No romantic entanglement required beyond convincing performances in public. "What's our story?" Elena asked, pen hovering over the signature line. Julian's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "We met at a gallery opening. Your perspective challenged mine. 6 months of dating, engaged 3 weeks ago." "Quite the whirlwind romance," she remarked. "Efficiency is my specialty," he replied, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. Elena signed her name with a flourish, pushing away the voice that warned this was a terrible idea. "I have one condition," she said. "I need to photograph the city at dawn tomorrow for my exhibition." Julian looked momentarily thrown by the request. "That's fine, but we begin rehearsals tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock. As Elena rose to leave, she caught him studying her with unexpected intensity. "Something wrong, fiancé?" she asked, testing the word. "Your eyes," he said softly. "They're different colors." Elena touched her face self-consciously. "Heterochromia. One blue, one hazel. It's distinctive," Julian said, clearing his throat. "Good for our story. Makes you memorable." Walking out into the cool evening air, Elena wondered what she'd just committed to. $15,000 to pretend to love a man who calculated human connections like business transactions. A man whose piercing gaze had, for just a moment, seen something in her worth noting. 7 days of pretending. How hard could it be? The performance. "Remember my mother collects indigenous art," Julian murmured as they approached the glittering charity gala. His hand rested lightly on the small of Elena's back, warm through the midnight blue silk of her gown. "And your father retired from neurosurgery last year?" Elena replied smoothly. "Your sister lives in London with her wife and son." Julian nodded, impressed by her retention of details. 3 days into their arrangement, Elena had proven herself remarkably adaptable. The Nakamura Technologies executives watched from across the ballroom as Julian guided Elena through introductions. Her laughter, genuine and warm, seemed to soften the formal atmosphere around them. "You're quite convincing," Julian whispered during a quiet moment, champagne flute poised at his lips. Elena smiled, leaning closer as if sharing a lover's secret. "Theater training, though it helps that you're less intimidating when you're trying to impress Japanese businessmen." "Am I intimidating?" Julian asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "You were until I saw you panic over which tie matched our couple aesthetic this morning," she teased. A subtle blush crept across Julian's cheeks. For someone so controlled, these small glimpses of vulnerability fascinated Elena. Behind her camera lens, she'd learned to spot authentic emotion, and something about Julian's carefully constructed facade intrigued her. Later that evening, Julian's hand found hers under the table during dinner. Not for show, no one could see. The unexpected contact sent a current through her arm. "Mr. Nakamura asked about our engagement story," he explained quietly. "We should dance after dinner. Make it convincing." The orchestra began a slow waltz as Julian led Elena to the center of the floor. His hand settled at her waist with surprising gentleness. "I never asked if you can dance," he realized. Elena smiled. "Another surprise for you." She followed his lead perfectly, their bodies finding natural rhythm together. "Where did you learn?" Julian asked, genuine interest replacing his business tone. "My grandmother. She believed every woman should know how to dance and how to change a flat tire." Julian laughed, a real laugh that transformed his face. Practical wisdom. As they moved across the floor, Elena noticed how other women watched Julian. His tailored tuxedo accentuated broad shoulders and the lean strength of his body. When he focused his attention on someone, it felt all-consuming. "They're watching us," she whispered. "Let them," Julian replied, drawing her closer. "You're beautiful tonight." It's not hard to play the besotted fiancé. The compliment caught her off guard. Was this part of the act? The line between performance and reality blurred as his thumb traced small circles on her back. Later, at Julian's penthouse, Elena slipped off her heels while he loosened his tie. "I think we convinced them," she said, trying to sound professional despite the intimacy of being alone in his home. Julian nodded, pouring 2 glasses of wine. "You were perfect. The way you remembered details about everyone's children. Nakamura mentioned how impressed he was with you." "Just doing my job," Elena replied, accepting the glass. Their fingers brushed, lingering a moment too long. The city lights sparkled beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. Elena approached the view, mesmerized. "This would make an extraordinary photograph," she murmured. Julian stood beside her, close enough that she could detect his cologne, sandalwood, and something uniquely him. "You see beauty everywhere," he observed quietly. "Occupational hazard," she replied, "though some things are beautiful to everyone." Their eyes met in the reflection of the glass. Something unspoken passed between them, a current neither had anticipated. Julian cleared his throat. "You should get some rest. Tomorrow's the gallery opening." Elena nodded, retreating to the guest room that had been prepared for appearances. As she closed the door, she leaned against it, heart racing inexplicably. This was just a job, she reminded herself. The flutter in her chest when he looked at her, that was just adrenaline from the performance. Wasn't it? The revelation. The coastal retreat house stood perched on cliffs overlooking the Pacific, waves crashing dramatically below. This weekend getaway, Julian explained, would be crucial for convincing Nakamura's conservative board members who had joined the negotiations. "They'll be watching us closely," Julian warned as he carried Elena's overnight bag inside. Japanese business culture values harmony in all aspects of life, including personal relationships. Elena nodded, though tension had been building between them since their dance 3 nights ago. Every touch now carried an undercurrent of something neither was willing to name. That evening, seated around a fire pit overlooking the ocean, Elena found herself genuinely enjoying the company of the Nakamura family. Mrs. Nakamura, particularly, seemed taken with her. How did Julian propose? She asked through her daughter's translation. Elena froze momentarily before a story emerged naturally. We were at my photography studio. I was so focused on adjusting lights that I didn't notice him kneeling. When I turned around, she glanced at Julian, surprised to find him watching her intently. I had been carrying the ring for weeks, Julian continued seamlessly, taking her hand, waiting for the perfect moment. But seeing her lost in her passion for photography, I realized perfect moments aren't planned. They're recognized. A collective sigh rose from the women present. Even Mr. Nakamura nodded approvingly. Later, as guests retired to their rooms, Elena and Julian walked along the moonlit beach. The performance should have ended with privacy, but Julian's hand still held hers. That was quite a proposal story, Elena said, breaking the silence. Julian looked out at the dark water. It felt right. You're always most beautiful when you're focused on your art. The sincerity in his voice disarmed her. Julian, I know this is an arrangement, he said quickly. I'm not confusing things, but weren't they both confused? The lines had blurred days ago. They sat on a driftwood log, the distant house lights twinkling above them. Julian seemed to be wrestling with something. Why are you really doing this merger? Elena asked gently. Julian was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. My father built software that helped patients with brain injuries communicate. After he died, the company lost its purpose, became about profit margins instead of people. His voice grew softer. Nakamura's neural interface technology could help thousands. That's not in your company profile, Elena observed. No, Julian admitted. It's easier to be seen as calculating than idealistic. Idealism makes you vulnerable. Elena studied his profile against the moonlight. Is that why you keep everyone at a distance? Fear of vulnerability? Julian turned to her, surprise evident in his expression. My last relationship ended when I discovered she was selling company information to competitors. I'm sorry, Elena said quietly. Don't be. It taught me a valuable lesson about mixing business with pleasure. And yet here we are, Elena said softly. Their eyes met, and the pretense between them seemed to dissolve. Julian's hand reached up, hesitantly brushing a strand of hair from her face. This is different, he whispered. How? Elena's heart hammered in her chest. Because I find myself wishing this wasn't an arrangement. The confession hung between them, honest and terrifying. Elena leaned forward slightly, drawn by something stronger than logic. Their lips met tentatively at first, then with growing certainty. His arms encircled her waist as she pressed closer, fingers threading through his hair. The kiss deepened, years of Julian's careful restraint crumbling beneath the weight of unexpected feeling. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, reality crashed back. I can't do this, Elena whispered, standing abruptly. This isn't real, Julian. You're paying me to pretend. Pain flashed across his features. Is that all this is to you? Pretending? Elena hugged herself against the cool night air. I don't know anymore, and that terrifies me. She walked back to the house alone, leaving Julian staring after her, the taste of their kiss still lingering on both their lips. Part 4. The Farewell. The merger documents sat ready for signatures, the culmination of Julian's meticulous planning. Yet, as the principals gathered in Blackwood Innovation's conference room, his attention kept drifting to Elena. She sat beside him, perfectly poised in a cream-colored suit, playing her role flawlessly. But the distance between them since their kiss 3 nights ago felt insurmountable. We are honored to join our companies together, Mr. Nakamura announced, his formal English careful and precise. And we are pleased to see Blackwood-san has found personal happiness as well as professional success. Elena smiled warmly, her hand covering Julian's on the table. Only he could feel how it trembled slightly. Later, as champagne flowed and executives mingled, Julian pulled Elena into a quiet corridor. It's done, he said. The contract is officially complete. He reached into his jacket, producing an envelope. Your payment, as agreed. Elena looked at the envelope without taking it. That's it then? Unless... Julian hesitated, uncharacteristic uncertainty in his eyes. Elena, these past 7 days were an arrangement, she finished for him, finally accepting the envelope with careful fingers. A successful business transaction? Julian stepped closer. You know it became more than that, did it? Elena asked, meeting his gaze directly. Or did we just get caught up playing our parts? That kiss wasn't acting, Julian insisted, his voice low and intense. Neither was this. His hand gently cupped her cheek, thumb brushing her skin with uncharacteristic tenderness. Elena closed her eyes briefly, leaning into his touch despite herself. I've spent my life capturing authentic moments through my camera lens, Julian. I know when something's real and when it's... She paused. But this started with a contract. With you paying me to pretend. So we start over, Julian suggested, urgency edging into his voice. No contracts, no pretending. Elena shook her head sadly. I'd always wonder if you were with me because I played my part so well. And you'd always wonder if I stayed for your wealth or status. She stepped back, breaking their connection. Some beginnings can't be overcome. Julian's expression hardened, his defensive walls visibly rebuilding. I see. No, you don't, Elena said gently. But that's part of the problem. She reached into her bag, withdrawing a small wrapped package. This is for you. Open it when I'm gone. Julian accepted it wordlessly, his business mask firmly back in place. I wish you success with your exhibition next month. Thank you for the opportunity, Elena replied formally, the professional veneer nearly breaking her. Goodbye, Julian. She walked away down the corridor, each step requiring immense effort. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to tell him that somewhere between fake smiles and rehearsed touches, she'd begun to fall for the man behind the carefully constructed facade. But some stories weren't meant to continue beyond their final chapter. In his office, Julian unwrapped Elena's package with unsteady hands. Inside was a framed photograph, one she must have taken during their week together. It showed Julian at dawn on his balcony, face turned toward the breaking light. A moment of unguarded hope captured perfectly. Beneath it, a handwritten note. This is how I'll remember you, not as the man who paid me to pretend, but as the man who forgot to hide when he thought no one was watching. Julian traced the words with his fingertip, then placed the frame facing down on his desk. He had a company to run. Feelings were an indulgence he couldn't afford, but the photograph remained even when turned away from sight. The reunion 6 months passed. The Blackwood-Nakamura neural interface made headlines in medical journals. Julian's wealth nearly doubled. Yet he moved through his success like a ghost, present but somehow absent. The invitation arrived unexpectedly. Elena's photography exhibition opening at a prestigious downtown gallery. Julian stared at the embossed card tracing the title, Authentic Deceptions, Finding Truth in Performance. He shouldn't go. The merger was complete, the pretense long finished. Yet the photograph remained on his desk, now facing upward, a daily reminder of a brief moment when calculation had given way to something genuine. The gallery hummed with conversation when Julian arrived. He moved through the crowd, anonymous among San Francisco's art elite, until he saw her. Elena stood across the room, hair shorter now, laughing with an older couple. She wore a simple black dress, her camera, as always, slung across her body. She looked happy, successful, complete without him. Then she turned, as if sensing his presence, and their eyes met across the crowded space. The conversation around her continued, but Elena had gone still, lips parted slightly in surprise. Julian approached slowly, giving her every opportunity to turn away. She didn't. Congratulations, he said simply when he reached her. The exhibition is extraordinary. Thank you for coming, Elena replied, professional courtesy masking whatever she might truly feel. I didn't expect you would. Neither did I, Julian admitted. Then, more softly, I've missed you. Elena excused herself from her companions, gesturing toward a quieter corner of the gallery. Julian followed, heart racing with uncharacteristic nervousness. Your neural interface is helping people communicate again, she said. I saw the news coverage. You've accomplished what your father started, Julian nodded. The merger was successful. Everything went according to plan. Everything? Elena asked, meeting his eyes directly. No, Julian confessed. Not everything. They stood in silence, surrounded by Elena's photographs, each capturing moments of performative intimacy juxtaposed with genuine connection. Your work is remarkable, Julian said, looking at the nearest image, hands almost touching across a table. It's about the week we spent together, Elena explained quietly. About finding unexpected truth in what begins as performance. Julian's breath caught. Is that what you found with me? Truth? Elena studied him carefully. I found something I wasn't looking for. Something that scared me. It scared me too, Julian admitted. I built my life around control and certainty. You made me question everything. Elena gestured to a photograph behind him, the one she'd given him the day she left. This is how I see you, Julian. Not as the calculating businessman, but as someone capable of remarkable feeling. Julian stepped closer. I've spent 6 months trying to forget you. It hasn't worked. Professional hazard, Elena said with a small smile. I'm quite memorable. It wasn't your different colored eyes or your talent, Julian said softly. It was how you saw through every defense I've spent years building. Elena's expression softened. And what would you do if given another chance? I'd start with honesty, Julian replied. I tell you, I've never met anyone who challenges me the way you do. That the week we spent pretending taught me more about real connection than years of actual relationships. His hand reached for hers, hesitant but hopeful. I'd ask if you might have dinner with me. No contracts, no pretending. Just 2 people starting over. Elena looked down at their almost touching hands. And if I said yes? Then I'd consider myself the luckiest man in this gallery, Julian answered, vulnerability evident in his voice. Elena's fingers finally interlaced with his, the touch sending the same current through both of them. Well, Mr. Blackwood, she said, a genuine smile spreading across her features. I believe you still owe me a real proposal story. Julian laughed, the sound genuine and unburdened. I'm willing to work on that, though it might take some time to get right. Fortunately, Elena replied, drawing closer, I'm not in a hurry anymore. Around them, gallery patrons admired photographs capturing the blurred line between performance and authenticity. But in that quiet corner, no cameras documented the moment when pretense gave way completely to truth, when 2 people who had begun in deception found their way, at last, to something real. Elena leaned forward, her forehead resting against Julian's. Some endings, she whispered, are just better beginnings in disguise. His arms encircled her waist, holding her with the certainty that had eluded him for months. I'm beginning to see that, he murmured, before closing the final distance between them. This time there was no confusion about what was real and what was pretend. This was no performance for watching eyes. This was simply truth, finally embraced.